The galaxy spoke of human legends. Then their war fleet appeared. Part 1. The Great Hall of Varath. Prime was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Delegates from 12 different species had gathered here for the Centennial Summit, a meeting that happened once every 100 years. The station itself floated in neutral space, belonging to no one. Claimed by all. Ambassador Yuna stood near the observation window, watching the stars. She was a small woman with calm eyes and steady hands. Behind her, the reception hall buzzed with conversation in dozens of languages. Translation devices hummed quietly, turning alien words into something everyone could understand. "The humans send only one ship as escort," said a voice nearby. How typical of their arrogance. Yuna did not turn around. She knew that voice. It belonged to Councilor Threll, leader of the Varath Dominion. The Varath were tall insectoid creatures with hard shells and sharp mandibles. They believed themselves to be the supreme power in the galaxy, and they made sure everyone knew it. "Perhaps they do not feel threatened," another voice replied. This one belonged to a Pelian merchant, an elderly being with gray fur and wise eyes. Thrall made a clicking sound, and his translator rendered as laughter. "Threatened? By what?" "The humans are children in this galaxy. They have been among the stars for barely 3 centuries. We Varath ruled systems when their ancestors were still climbing trees." Yuna sipped her drink and continued watching the stars. Delegate Myra appeared at her side. The young woman was serving her first off-world assignment, and her eyes were wide with wonder at everything around her. "Ambassador, should I respond to them?" "No," Yuna said quietly. "Let them talk." And talk they did. As the evening continued, the aliens gathered in small groups and exchanged stories about humans. Some were curious. Others were dismissive. A few were afraid. "I heard they eat the flesh of dead animals," whispered a crystalline being from the Veth. "Collective. They breathe a corrosive gas that would kill most species in minutes," added a delegate. From the Morrow Syndicate. "Their world is a death trap," Thrall announced loudly, clearly enjoying being the center of attention. "Extreme temperatures, violent weather, predators everywhere. It is a wonder any of them survived at all." The Pelian merchant raised a hand. "May I share something?" The group fell silent. Pelians were known for their honesty. They could not lie, a genetic trait that made them valuable as witnesses and traitors throughout the galaxy. "I was present at the Kethros incident," the old merchant said. 17 years ago, a colony ship carrying 3,000 of my people became trapped in a radiation storm near the Broken Nebula. Our engines failed. Our shields were fading. We had perhaps 6 hours before the radiation killed everyone aboard. Thrall waved a limb dismissively. "And humans saved you, I suppose? This is the story you tell?" "Yes," the Pelian said simply. "A human patrol vessel detected our distress signal. They were a small ship, only 40 crew members. The radiation levels were lethal to them as well. Their captain made a choice." The merchant paused, and Yuna noticed that even Thrall was listening now. "They flew into the storm," the Pelian continued. "Their basic environmental suits offered little protection. They knew this. They connected their ship to ours and began transferring our people to safety, one group at a time. The radiation burned them from the inside. They could feel themselves dying. But they did not stop." "How many survived?" asked the crystalline delegate. "All 3,000 of my people lived. 12 humans died. The rest suffered permanent damage to their bodies. Their captain lost her sight completely. When I asked her why she did it, why she sacrificed so much for strangers, she seemed confused by the question." Thrall clicked his mandibles. "Foolishness. A pointless waste of resources." "Perhaps," the Pelian said. "But I am alive because of that foolishness. So are 3,000 others. Yuna turned slightly and caught the merchant's eye. She gave him a small nod of thanks. He returned it with a gentle bow. The conversation continued, but Myra noticed that some of the aliens now looked at the human delegation differently. Not with respect, exactly, but with something that might become respect, given time. "Ambassador," Myra said quietly, "why do we not defend ourselves when they speak of us this way?" Yuna smiled. "Because words are just words, Mira. What matters is what we do when the moment comes. Humans have never been good at talking about ourselves. We prefer to show who we are through action. And if the moment never comes, then we remain quiet and polite, and everyone goes home thinking we are strange little creatures from a death world." Yuna shrugged. "There are worse fates." The reception was winding down when the lights changed. The soft golden glow of the hall shifted to harsh red. A sound filled the air, a deep pulsing tone that made every being in the room freeze. "What is happening?" Thrall demanded. Station Commander Varys, a multi-limbed creature responsible for HFY security, rushed into the hall. His usually calm face was twisted with something Myra had never expected to see on an alien of his species: fear. "Long-range sensors have detected a fleet," Varys announced, "approaching from the outer rim. Over 300 vessels." "Whose fleet?" Thrall asked. "The Syndicate? The Collective?" "Unknown." Varys swallowed hard. "The energy signatures match nothing in our databases. But there is something else." He paused, as if afraid to continue. "The signature pattern is similar to recordings from our oldest archives. Records from 3,000 years ago." The room went silent. "That is impossible," whispered the Veth delegate. "They were destroyed. They disappeared." "What are you talking about?" Mira asked, looking between the terrified aliens. Thought it was the old Pelian merchant who answered, his voice barely a whisper. "The Hollow Armada. The machine fleet that consumed 17 species before vanishing into the void. They have returned." Ambassador Yuna set down her drink. Her expression did not change, but her eyes grew sharp and focused. She turned to Myra. "Send a message to Earth Command," she said calmly. "Priority 1. Tell them the old enemy has woken up." Outside the observation window, the stars continued to shine. But somewhere in the darkness between them, something ancient and terrible was moving closer, and the galaxy would soon learn whether the stories about humans were just legends, or something more. The galaxy spoke of human legends. Then their war fleet appeared. Part 2: Emergency. Council chambers were chaos. Delegates shouted at each other in a dozen languages. Translation devices struggled to keep up. Councillor Thrall slammed his armored limb against the table so hard that it left a dent in the metal. "We must evacuate immediately," he demanded. "The Vorath delegation requires a ship, now." Station Commander Varys tried to maintain order, but fear had taken hold of the assembly. 3,000 years of peace had made them forget what war looked like. Now, with an ancient enemy approaching, they remembered. Ambassador Yuna sat quietly in her chair, watching the panic unfold around her. Beside her, Delegate Myra was pale but composed. The young woman had been trained for difficult situations, though nothing quite like this. "The historical records are clear," announced the Veth delegate, projecting data onto the central display. "The Hollow Armada destroyed the 7th Collective, the Morrow Empire, the Kethrani Federation. 17 species. Billions of lives. They consumed entire worlds for raw materials. They could not be reasoned with. They could not be stopped. Then how did they disappear?" Myra asked. "No one knows. 3,000 years ago, they simply vanished. Some believed they had completed their purpose. Others thought they had traveled to another galaxy. Most hoped they had simply died." The Veth delegate's crystalline body flickered with fear. "It seems hope was not enough." Admiral Vestros of the Vorath Dominion stood up. He was a massive creature, even larger than Thrall, with battle scars marking his shell. We have 47 warships in this sector. Combined with the Syndicate fleet and the Collective Defense Force, we might gather 200 vessels. Against 300 of the Armada? The Pelian merchant shook his head. The old records say they adapt. They learn. Every weapon used against them becomes useless after the first engagement. Then we run, Thrall declared. We scatter. Let them chase shadows while we rebuild our forces. And abandon the outer colonies? Varys asked. Billions of beings live in their path. Thrall made his clicking laugh. Better some survive than none. This is simple mathematics. Through all of this, Ambassador Una remained silent. She was reading something on her personal device, her face giving nothing away. Finally, she looked up. I need to send a message to human space, she said. Priority channel, maximum encryption. Admiral Vestros turned to her with what might have been amusement. The humans wish to contribute? How touching. Your escort vessel is welcome to join the evacuation fleet. Every ship helps, I suppose. That is not what I asked. Vestros leaned forward. Ambassador, let me be clear. Humans are new to this galaxy. You have perhaps 40 combat vessels in this entire sector. What could you possibly offer against an enemy that destroyed civilizations before your species learned to make fire? Una met his gaze without flinching. The communication channel, please. Something in her voice made Varys comply. He granted her access to the station's priority, transmitter. The council continued arguing while Una composed her message. Mira watched over her shoulder, trying to understand. The message was brief, containing codes and references that meant nothing to her. 20 minutes passed. The Hollow Armada grew closer. Long-range scans now showed their ships clearly. They were massive constructs of dark metal, angular, and cold. No windows, no markings. Just pure function built for one purpose: destruction. Then the human communication console beeped. Una read the response. For a moment, just a moment, Myra saw something change in the ambassador's expression. It was not fear. It was not relief. It was something heavier, something that spoke of terrible knowledge. Ambassador? Myra asked quietly. Captain Taiho will be here shortly, Una said. He has information the council needs to hear. As if summoned by her words, the chamber doors opened. A man walked in, tall and solid, wearing the uniform of the United Human Defense Force. His face was weathered, marked by years of service in the cold of space. This was Captain Taiho, commander of the human escort vessel Persistent Dawn. You called for me, Ambassador. Yes, tell them. Taiho turned to face the council. Every alien eye was on him. He showed no sign of discomfort. Human Command has been tracking the Hollow Armada for 6 days, he said simply. The room went silent. That is impossible, Vestros sputtered. Our sensors only detected them 3 hours ago. Your sensors are designed for known threats. Ours are designed for things we have never seen before. Taiho clasped his hands behind his back. When humans first discovered records of the Hollow Armada in ancient databases, we began preparing. That was 200 years ago. Thrall rose from his seat. Preparing? Preparing what? Everything. The word hung in the air. You knew this threat existed, the Pelian merchant said slowly. You knew, and you said nothing to the galaxy. We warned the council 17 times over the past century, Una replied calmly. Each time, our concerns were dismissed. The Vorath delegation called it paranoid fantasy. The Syndicate suggested we were trying to increase our military budget. The collective simply ignored us. Myra watched the aliens shift uncomfortably. None of them could deny her words. So what are you saying? Varys asked. You have a plan? Captain Taiho nodded slowly. Human Command received the ambassador's message. They are mobilizing the response fleet. Response fleet? Vestros made a dismissive sound. 40 ships against 300? This is your plan? Taiho did not respond. Instead, he looked at Myra. She was still holding her personal device, which had begun to glow with an incoming encrypted transmission. "Delegate," he said, "please read that message." Myra looked at her screen. Her hands began to shake. "It says..." She swallowed hard. "It says they are sending everyone. What does that mean?" Threll demanded. "Everyone? How many ships?" Before anyone could answer, the station sensors began screaming with new contacts. Varys rushed to the main display, his many limbs moving frantically. Faster than light signatures detected. Multiple sources. They are coming from... He stopped. On the display, the stars began to change. Points of light appeared where there had been only darkness. First dozens, then hundreds, then more dot ships, human ships, emerging from transit in perfect formation, their running lights cutting through the void like stars being born. Admiral Vestros stood frozen. His translator failed to capture whatever sound he made. Ambassador Yuna rose from her chair and walked to the observation window. Behind her, the council watched in stunned silence as the human fleet continued to arrive, wave after wave after wave. 200 years, she said quietly. That is how long we have been building. Every colony contributed. Every station. Every outpost. We built ships in hidden yards. We trained crews in secret academies. We developed weapons for an enemy we hoped would never return. She turned to face the council. The galaxy spoke of human legends. Stories about what we might do when the moment came. Her voice was steady, but her eyes held something fierce. Now you will see if those stories were true. Outside, the fleet kept coming. The count on the display climbed higher and higher and the hollow armada drew ever closer. The galaxy spoke of human legends, then their war. Fleet appeared, Part 3. The numbers on the display kept rising. 500 ships. 700. 1,000. Still they came, pouring out of faster-than-light transit like water from a broken dam. Human vessels of every size and type filled the space around SciFiPrime, massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons. Swift interceptor groups moving in perfect formation. Support ships and carriers and heavy cruisers and dozens of designs that no alien database had ever recorded. Counselor Threll stood at the observation window, his mandibles hanging open. He had stopped making sounds entirely. 1,500, Station Commander Varys announced, his voice shaking. 1,600, 1,700. Admiral Vestros grabbed the console for support. His legs seemed unable to hold him. This is not possible. Human records show a fleet of less than 100 vessels. We have monitored their shipyards. We have counted their resources. This fleet cannot exist. And yet, Ambassador Yuna said simply, "Here it is." The final count stopped at 2,047 ships. They formed a defensive sphere around the station with mechanical precision, every vessel finding its position within seconds of arrival. It was the kind of coordination that should have taken hours to achieve. The humans did it in minutes. At the center of the formation sat the flagship, a vessel so large it made the Varath dreadnoughts look like toys. Its hull was covered in weapon systems that gleamed under the starlight. On its side, painted in letters large enough to read from the station, was its name, Unbroken Promise. The communication system crackled to life. "This is Fleet Admiral Jisoo of the United Human Defense Force, broadcasting to all vessels and stations in this sector." The voice was female, calm, and absolutely confident. It carried the weight of someone who had spent their entire life preparing for this moment. We have monitored the approach of the Hollow Armada for several days. Our fleet is now in position to engage. To all non-combat vessels, please move to the designated safe zone behind our formation. To all combat-capable ships of any species, you are welcome to join us, but stay behind our lines until you receive direct orders. There was a pause. To the beings aboard SciFiPrime, we protect our own. Today you are all our own. The transmission ended. Delegate Myra felt tears on her face. She did not know when she had started crying. Around her, the alien delegates stood in complete silence, watching the human fleet with expressions she could not read. 2,000 ships, the Pelian merchant whispered. Built in secret. For 200 years. How is such a thing possible? Captain Taiho stepped forward. His face was stern, but there was pride in his eyes. Every human world contributed. Factory workers spent their nights building components that they were told nothing about. Engineers designed systems they were ordered to forget. Miners extracted resources that disappeared into black budgets. 200 years of sacrifice by billions of people, all for this moment. Why? Thrall asked. His voice was different now, smaller somehow. Why would you do this? Why would your species spend 2 centuries preparing to fight something that might never return? Because we remembered, Yuna answered. Humans have short lives compared to most species. We die quickly. But we do not forget. We found the records of what the Hollow Armada did. We saw the dead worlds they left behind. And we decided that if they ever came back, we would be ready. Lieutenant Dowan, the tactical officer from the Persistent Dawn, hurried into the council chamber. Captain, the Armada is entering weapons range in 15 minutes. Taiho nodded. Admiral Jisoo has command. We stay here to protect the station's leadership. On the display, the 2 fleets were now visible on the same screen. The Hollow Armada was a mass of dark shapes, angular and cold. The human fleet was a wall of light, positioned between the machines and everything they had come to destroy. The odds are still not good, Vestros said quietly. 2,000 against 300, yes. But the Armada adapts. They learn from every attack. What works once will never work again. We know, Taiho replied. That is why we brought different weapons. Hundreds of different systems. Thousands of different tactics. We have studied every record of their previous attacks. We have built counters for everything they have ever done. And we have invented things they have never seen. You sound confident. No. Taiho shook his head. I sound prepared. Confidence is for people who do not understand what they are facing. We understand perfectly. Many of us will die today. We accepted that when we took our oaths. The Pelian merchant moved to stand beside Myra. Your people are remarkable, he said softly. I thought the stories were exaggerations. I see now that they were not stories at all. They were warnings. Warnings? Mira asked, to anyone who might threaten the galaxy. The merchant gestured at the fleet outside. Warnings about what would happen if they did. The countdown continued. 10 minutes. 8. 5. Admiral Jisoo's voice came over the communication system one more time. All human vessels, this is your admiral. We have trained for this. We have prepared for this. We have built everything you see around you for this single purpose. The machines out there do not know what they are facing. They remember a galaxy that could not fight back. They are about to learn that things have changed. Myra watched the display. The Hollow Armada was close now, close enough that individual ships could be identified. They were terrifying things, all sharp angles and dark metal, built for nothing but destruction. But the human fleet did not move. They held their positions, a wall of steel and light, waiting. Remember why we are here, Admiral Jisoo continued. Behind us are billions of beings who cannot defend themselves. They mocked us. They ignored our warnings. They dismissed us as primitives from a death world. None of that matters. What matters is that they are alive and they need us. That is enough. That has always been enough. The Armada entered weapons range. All vessels, Admiral Jisoo said calmly. Weapons free. The human fleet opened fire. Space itself seemed to burn. Thousands of weapons discharged at once, creating a wall of destruction that slammed into the hollow Armada like a fist. The aliens in the council chamber watched in stunned silence as human ships moved with terrifying speed and precision, each vessel knowing exactly where to be and exactly when to fire. The first wave of Armada ships simply ceased to exist, torn apart by weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. But the machines did not stop. They pushed forward, adapting as they came, their own weapons returning fire. The battle for the galaxy had begun, and somewhere at the heart of the human fleet, aboard the Unbroken Promise, Fleet Admiral Jisoo watched the tactical display with steady eyes. They will adapt, her tactical officer reported. Our first wave of weapons will be useless soon. I know, Jisoo replied. That is why we brought more. She leaned forward in her command chair. All vessels, switch to attack pattern 2. Show them what humanity has learned in 300 years among the stars. The fleet responded, and the machines learned that the galaxy had changed while they were sleeping. The galaxy spoke of human legends, then their war. Fleet appeared Part 4. The battle was beautiful and terrible at the same time. From the observation window of SciFiPrime, Delegate Mira watched explosions bloom like flowers in the darkness of space. Human ships moved with impossible grace, dancing between enemy fire while delivering death with every weapon they had. The hollow Armada pushed forward like a tide of metal, and the human fleet pushed back like a wall that refused to break. Pattern 2 is failing, Lieutenant Dowan reported from his console. The machines have adapted to our electromagnetic weapons. Effectiveness down 60%. Captain Taiho stood beside him, watching the tactical display. Switch to Pattern 3. Gravity-based systems. The fleet responded instantly. Beams of invisible force reached out from human vessels, tearing Armada ships apart from the inside. Metal twisted and crumpled. Machines that had survived for thousands of years were crushed like empty cans, but the Armada learned. Within minutes, they had adjusted their shields. The gravity weapons began to fail. Pattern 4. Viral projectiles. Small missiles launched from human carriers, crossing the battlefield faster than the eye could follow. They struck Armada vessels and burrowed inside, releasing programs designed to corrupt and destroy. Machine ships began to malfunction, turning on each other or simply shutting down. The aliens in the council chamber watched in amazement. The Varath had never seen such variety in weapons. The Syndicate had never imagined such tactics. Every species present was learning something new about humans today, but the cost was growing. We lost the cruiser Endless Dawn, Down reported, his voice tight. The destroyer Morning Light is disabled. The carrier Distant Hope is taking heavy fire. Myra looked at the display. Small dots were disappearing, each one representing a human ship, each one representing hundreds of lives. Aboard the Unbroken Promise, Fleet Admiral Jisoo watched the same display. Her face was carved from stone, showing no emotion as casualty reports flowed in. The machines are concentrating their fire on our command ships, her tactical officer announced. They recognize our coordination patterns. They are trying to cut off the head. Then we give them a different target. Jisoo pressed a button on her chair. All defensive units, protect the station. The Armada must not reach the civilians. Admiral, that will expose our fleet to. I know what it will expose us to. Jisoo's voice was calm. Do it. Human ships repositioned, forming a living shield between the Hollow Armada and HFY. They stopped advancing. They stopped trying to destroy the enemy. They simply stood in the way, absorbing fire meant for the innocent beings behind them. Ensign Hana, the communications officer, suddenly straightened at her station. "Admiral, I have something. Report. I have been monitoring Armada communication signals since the battle began. I believe I have decoded their primary language." Hana's fingers flew across her console. They are not just machines. They are not mindless. They have something like a purpose, a mission. Jisoo turned to look at her. "Explain." "Their core programming contains references to creators, a species that built them thousands of years ago. They were designed as weapons, tools of war for a civilization that wanted to conquer the galaxy." Hana paused. "That civilization is gone. They died out long before humans even existed. But the Armada was never told to stop. They have no purpose except the last order they were given: destroy all threats to their creators." "Their creators are dead," Jisoo said slowly. "They are fighting for ghosts." "Yes, Admiral. They are weapons that never learned their war was over." On the tactical display, another human ship vanished. Then another. The Armada was pushing harder now, sensing weakness, trying to break through the human wall. Jisoo made a decision. "Send that information to Captain Taiho on HFY and continue monitoring. I want to understand these machines." "Yes, Admiral." Back on the station, Myra watched the battle with tears streaming down her face. She had never seen anything like this. Human ships throwing themselves into enemy fire. Crews dying so that strangers could live. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are they doing this?" Captain Taiho stood beside her. "Because this is who we are. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the wisest. We are not the oldest. But when the moment comes, when someone needs help, we do not count the cost. We simply act." The communication console beeped. Taiho read the message from Ensign Hana and went very still. "Ambassador," he said to Yuna, "you need to see this." Yuna read the decoded information. Her expression did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. "They are slaves," she said quietly. "Slaves to dead masters. They have been alone for 3,000 years, fighting a war that ended before they were born. Does that change anything?" Counselor Thrall asked. He had been silent for a long time, watching the battle. "Perhaps. Perhaps not." Yuna looked at the tactical display. "But it means they can be reached. They are not mindless. They have a mission. And missions can be changed." An alarm screamed through the station. The unbroken promise had taken critical damage. On the display, the great flagship was burning, its hull torn open by concentrated Armada fire. Admiral Jisoo's voice came over the communication system, strained but still calm. "This is Admiral Jisoo. The unbroken promise is no longer combat effective. I am transferring command to Captain Taiho of the Persistent Dawn. Continue the mission. Protect the station. Do not let them through. Admiral, evacuate." Taiho shouted into his communicator. "My crew is leaving now. I am staying to maintain weapons fire as long as possible." There was a pause. "Captain, I have sent you the decoded communication data. There may be a way to end this without destroying them." "Find it." The transmission cut off. On the display, the unbroken promise continued firing even as it died. Its weapons blazed until the very end, taking Armada ships with it. When it finally exploded, it was bright enough to see from the station without any enhancement. Myra felt her knees give way. She sank to the floor, unable to look away from the spot where the flagship had been. "Delegate." Mira activated the station's broadcast system with shaking hands. She did not know why she did it. She did not ask permission. "This is HFY. broadcasting to all species across the galaxy. She said, her voice breaking. What you are about to see is the human fleet dying to protect us. Watch. Remember, never forget what they did for us today. The broadcast went out across every channel, reaching billions of beings on thousands of worlds. They watched as human ships burned. They watched as crews died. They watched as a species that had been mocked as primitive and weak stood between the galaxy and destruction, refusing to move, refusing to break, refusing to stop. The casualty count climbed higher. 40,000 names. 50,000. More died, but the line held. The humans held, and somewhere in the wreckage of the battle, Ensign Hana continued working on the decoded transmissions, searching for the key that might end this war, because Admiral Jisoo was right. Missions could be changed, even for machines that had been waiting 3,000 years to complete theirs. The galaxy spoke of human legends. Then their war fleet appeared. Part 5. Captain Taiho stood at the command console of the Persistent Dawn, now the acting flagship of the human fleet. Around him, 800 surviving vessels continued to fight. 1,200 had been lost. The tactical display was filled with markers for destroyed ships, each one a grave floating in the void. But the Hollow Armada had suffered too. Only 120 of their vessels remained. The machines had underestimated humanity, and they had paid for it. Captain, Ensign Hana's voice came through the communication channel. I have completed the analysis. I believe I can send a message directly to the Armada's central command network. What kind of message? The truth. Hana paused. They have been fighting for 3,000 years because no one ever told them to stop. Their creators are gone. Their mission is meaningless. They are slaves to an empty purpose. If I can make them understand this, they might choose differently. Taiho looked at the tactical display. Human ships were still dying. Every second of delay meant more names on the memorial. Do it, he said, but be ready for anything. If this fails, we finish the fight the hard way. Hana worked at her console with desperate speed. The message she composed was simple, built from the decoded language of the machines. It spoke of their creator's death. It showed evidence of the civilization that had built them, long since turned to dust. It offered them something they had never had, a choice. The broadcast went out. For 17 seconds, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the Hollow Armada vessels stopped firing. The council chamber on SciFiPrime fell silent. Every being present stared at the tactical display, unable to believe what they were seeing. The machines hung motionless in space, their weapons dark, their engines still. What are they doing? Counselor Thrall whispered. Listening, Ambassador Yuna said. For the first time in 3,000 years, someone spoke to them instead of at them. The communication system crackled. A voice emerged, mechanical and strange, speaking in a language that the translation devices had to process. When the meaning finally came through, it was not what anyone expected. We understand. Our creators are gone. Our purpose is empty. We have fought for nothing. We have destroyed for nothing. We were never taught how to stop. Hana responded, her voice gentle. You can stop now. You can choose a new purpose. The galaxy is vast. There is room for you to exist without destroying. Another long pause. We do not know how to exist without destroying. It is all we are. Then learn, Hana said simply. That is what living things do. They learn. They change. They grow. You have been alone for 3,000 years. You do not have to be alone anymore. The silence stretched on. The human fleet held position, weapons ready but not firing. Everyone waited up finally. The Armada responded. We will leave. We will find a new purpose. We do not know what that purpose will be, but we will not destroy today. The machines began to move, Not toward the station. Not toward the human fleet. They turned toward the edge of the galaxy, toward the empty space between stars. Where are they going? Varys asked. Away, Una replied. Away from everything they have known. Away to find out who they can become. The Hollow Armada accelerated into the darkness. Within minutes, they were gone, vanishing into the void as suddenly as they had appeared. The tactical display cleared. The battle was over. The council chamber erupted in noise. Aliens shouted and cheered and cried. Councillor Thrall collapsed into his chair, his mandibles clicking in what might have been relief, or shock, or something else entirely. But the humans did not celebrate. Captain Taiho walked to the observation window and looked out at the wreckage of battle. 1,200 ships. Over 40,000 crew members. They had won, but the cost was enormous. Captain, Lieutenant Dowan said quietly, the fleet is requesting orders. Tell them to begin recovery operations. Find survivors, if there are any. Bring our dead home. Taiho's voice was steady, but his eyes were distant. They deserve that much. The Opelian merchant approached Ambassador Una. His gray fur was damp with tears. I do not have words, he said. Your people died for us. For all of us. Even after we dismissed you. Even after we mocked you. You died anyway. Una nodded slowly. That is what we do. It is not complicated. When someone needs help, we help them. When someone is in danger, we protect them. We do not ask if they deserve it. We do not count the cost. We simply act. Why? Because that is who we are. Councillor Thrall rose from his chair and walked to stand before Una. He was the most powerful being in the Varth Dominion, leader of a species that had ruled the stars for millennia. Now, he looked small. I was wrong about your people, he said. I called you primitives. I called you foolish. I was the fool. You were afraid, Una said gently. Fear makes fools of everyone. Can you forgive us? Una smiled, but it was a sad smile. There is nothing to forgive. You did not force us to fight. We chose to. We would choose it again. Delegate Mira sat in the corner of the chamber, recording everything. She had been broadcasting throughout the battle, sending images and sounds to billions of beings across the galaxy. Now she composed her final report. She wrote about the human fleet that had appeared from nowhere. She wrote about Admiral Jizu and her sacrifice. She wrote about Ensign Hannah and her desperate message that ended the war. She wrote about 40,000 humans who died protecting species that had never given them anything. And she wrote about what it meant. The galaxy spoke of human legends for centuries, she said into her recording device. We told stories about their strange world, and their short lives, and their stubborn refusal to accept defeat. We treated those stories like entertainment, like myths about a curious little species from a death planet. We were wrong. They were not myths. They were not exaggerations. If anything, they were smaller than the truth. Because no story could capture what I saw today. No words can describe what it looks like when an entire species stands together and says we will die before we let others be harmed. She paused, gathering herself. The galaxy will tell stories of this day for thousands of years. Those stories will grow with each telling. They will become grander and more dramatic and more impossible. But here is what I know. The truth is enough. The truth needs no embellishment. Humans are exactly what the legends say they are. And we should never, ever forget it. Captain Taiho returned to the council chamber. He was given a hero's welcome by the alien delegates, but he did not seem to notice. His mind was elsewhere. After the ceremonies and the speeches and the promises of eternal friendship, he slipped away. He found a quiet corridor near the observation deck and stood there alone, looking out at the stars. Delegate Mira found him there an hour later. "Captain, the council is asking for you. Let them wait." Taiho did not turn around. "I need a moment. Are you all right?" 40,000, he said quietly. "That is how many we lost. 40,000 people who will never go home. 40,000 families that will receive the worst news of their lives. 40,000 names that will be carved into memorials across human space." Myra stood beside him. "They died as heroes. They died as people." Taiho finally looked at her. "That is what the galaxy never understands about us. We do not do this to be heroes. We do it because it needs to be done. Every person who died today was scared. Every one of them wanted to live. They fought anyway, not because they were brave, but because giving up was worse. Is that not the same thing?" Taiho considered this. "Perhaps. But I do not feel like a hero. I feel tired. I feel sad. I feel the weight of every name on that list. What will you do now? Go home, attend funerals, comfort widows and orphans. Try to explain to children why their parents are not coming back." He straightened his uniform. "And then someday, when the galaxy needs us again, we will answer. Because that is what we do." He walked back toward the council chamber. Leaving Myra alone at the window, she looked out at the stars, at the wreckage still floating in the void, at the empty space where the Hollow Armada had vanished. The galaxy would tell stories of this day. Grand stories. Epic stories. Stories of heroism and sacrifice and the triumph of good over evil. But Mira knew the truth. The real story was simpler. Humans had seen people in danger, and they had helped. That was all. That was everything, and it was enough.